So I just want to be very clear about this. Not only is this Iranian journalist talking about, all the racism in America, which he's greatly exaggerating, Middle Eastern countries, to anyone who knows anything, I've spent many, many months in many of these countries, they have a level of racism and a level of bigotry that would blow the average American's mind if they were exposed to it.
We have got a sports event that is going to be on the front page of every newspaper in America. It's not the Super Bowl, not the college football national championship. It is a World Cup soccer match between the United States and Iran, which will actually start in the third hour of our program tomorrow. So I will have this on. Will you be pretending that you don't know what's going to happen again?
We have to set some ground rules here, Clay, because I will be watching this too. And just so you guys understand, usually we have monitors that, have the news on in our studios. But Clay will put on the soccer, and I see on his face this look of sheer delight, and I realize that's a U.S. goal. A look of unbelievable sadness. It looks like the other team just scored. So you have to poker face it if you're going to have that on in the background on mute while we're doing our show here. Even I will be watching the U.S. play Iran. And, look, let's be honest. This is the closest thing we have in real life these days to Ivan Drago against Rocky, the Soviet Union against the United States. This is the closest thing that we have to a replay of the, 1980, the college
U.S. versus Russia, the hockey match.
Right? 1980, yeah. Miracle, the movie about that. I actually saw it. It was a good movie. Producer Mark told me to watch it. He was right. So here we are watching the U.S. play Iran. And, I'm sure even people don't get nervous because of the ramifications of this. This is the most nerve-wracking sporting event that any of the U.S. men and certainly the Iranian men will have ever played.
And so even if you're not a sports fan, this is a big deal because if Iran wins, there will be a victory lap taken by the dictators running Iran, talking about, they'll be celebrating, burning American flags out in the streets, and it will help to distract, at least in some way in their country, from all of the protests over women's rights that are taking place. And let me just get on a soapbox here for a moment. I was actually talking to our friend Morgan Ortegas, Buck, over the weekend. She's going to be at this game. So she's flying all the way to Qatar. She's talking to a lot of media. She was formerly in the Trump administration. She said, when I'm talking to media over there, what would you want me to say? What's a good, she's not a sports person. She's like, what's a good argument? And I've been making this argument for years, Buck. And it's so pertinent, I think, right now. Some people say, hey, how come our women are so much better at soccer than our men? Our women go out and they've won multiple World Cups. The U.S. women's team, before they turned their back on Trump and insulted America and everything else. And I said, and this is something that I want all of you to think about, because it's very in vogue, unfortunately with athletes too, to talk about how awful America is. When the Women's World Cup bracket comes out, you can pick the winner of almost every Women's World Cup match just by analyzing the freedom that women have in that country. In other words, the reason why our women dominate and our men don't is because most countries around the world can find elite male athletes and develop them into really high-powered soccer stars. Even in countries like Iran where there's not great freedom, even in backwater republics, they will find people who can have soccer skill who are men. They don't do it for women. And so you can pick the win. I wish our women had been making this argument on the national stage. It's disgusts me when Megan Rapinoe is attacking Trump and saying, I won't go to the White House, when she could be pointing to all the great things that go on in America and saying, hey, you know why the women kick ass in the World Cup? Because we have the freedom to play sports. Because we can wear shorts in this country. Because we don't have to wear hijabs everywhere we go all over this country, okay? That's me on the soapbox. The Iranian journalists today, Buck, in Qatar, were lecturing the American coach and an American player about how awful America is And I want you to listen to this. It's a great answer that's given. And if you're out there and you don't care about sports usually or whatever, you're going to hear this question and you're going to say, I hope we kick the crap out of those.
This is Tyler Adams, young guy on the U.S. national team. I mean, he knocks this out of the park under the circumstances.
Let's hear the question first, because the question is so disrespectful from the Iranian journalist, and I'm using quotation marks from the journalist here. Because
propagandist. If you're an Iranian journalist, you do what the regime tells you. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Here's the question.
First of all, you say you support the Iranian people, but you're pronouncing our country's name wrong. Our country is named Iran, not Iran. Please, once and for all, let's get this clear. Second of all, are you okay to be representing a country that has so much discrimination against black people in its own borders? And we saw the Black Lives Matter movement over the past few years. Are you okay to be representing the U.S. meanwhile there's so much discrimination happening against black people in America?
That's the question he got. Okay, Buck, I mean, first of all, you get lectured about how to pronounce a country. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this show because I get it wrong all the time. So he's getting called out over how he freaking pronounces the country. And then he gets lectured about, are you proud? He's mixed race, I believe. Are you proud to be representing the United States? And I want you to listen to how good this answer is. What the player's name again, Buck?
I'm sorry. The player's name is Tyler
Who's
Adams.
Answering? Tyler Adams. Tyler Adams. I want to make sure we get his name right. Here's Tyler Adams' answer.
My apologies on the mispronunciation of your country. That being said, there's discrimination everywhere you go. One thing that I've learned, especially from living abroad in the past years and having to fit in different cultures and kind of assimilate into different cultures, is that in the U.S. we're continuing to make progress every single day. Growing up for me, I grew up in a white family with obviously an African American heritage and background as well. So I had a little bit of different cultures, and I was very very easily able to assimilate in different cultures. So not everyone has that ease and the ability to do that, and obviously it takes longer to understand. And through education, I think it's super important. Like you just educated me now on the pronunciation of your country. So. It's a process. I think as long as you see progress, that's the most important thing.
Can you just imagine Buck lecturing an American on freedom?
Well, I think everyone needs to also understand. First of all, this player, there's got to be this weird disconnect because he's like, I'm sitting here representing my national team, which is a very multi-ethnic U.S. national team. You got the entirety of the American people that are paying any attention to soccer, rooting for every single one of these guys with all their hearts. I mean, just cheering for them with everything they've got. They're representing our country. We love them for representing our country, and we want them to do as well as they can because we're all Americans. That's actually our country. That's this notion. Look, the Iranians, this is a page out of the Soviet playbook. The Soviets used to do the same thing. They would always talk about all the racism in America to try to cover up for their own atrocities at home, create some moral equivalency between their despotic, crappy, dysfunctional regime and our amazing wealth and freedom generating society that has been doing so well. The Iranians doing the exact same thing. It reminds me actually of when Ahmadinejad spoke at Columbia University. I think this was maybe about a decade ago, maybe 2008, 2009. And all these leftists were like, oh, yeah, it's going to be great. Ahmadinejad, because he's going to speak about how America is so, this is the premier of Iran, going to speak about how unequal America is. And then you know what he said when he was asked about how they treat the gay population in Iran? He said, we don't have any gay people.
Yeah.
So I just want to be very clear about this. Not only is this Iranian journalist talking about, all the racism in America, which he's greatly exaggerating, Middle Eastern countries, to anyone who knows anything, I've spent many, many months in many of these countries, they have a level of racism and a level of bigotry that would blow the average American's mind if they were exposed to it. You go into Saudi Arabia and the oppression of the workers, true in all the Gulf countries, by the way. They use Bangladeshi workers. They treat them like they're subhuman, Clay. It's horrific, the conditions they put them through. The things they say about people. These are Arabs now. In the case of Iran, it's Persians. People with darker skin, they say things that people would say, whoa, that's like racist, right? The Iranians, they even deny the existence of, there's a very small community of Ahwazi Some of them are black in Iran. They pretend that they don't even exist. They were brought into work in some of the oil rigs decades and decades ago. They treat Baloch and Azeri and all these different ethnic groups within Iran as less than Persians. So they have a whole society built on bigotry, a whole society where if you're of darker skin, the lighter skinned Persians often think less of those. True racism. And they're going to lecture us on racism? Oh, not on my watch.
Let me also add this, Buck. All these woke American and international companies, you can be beheaded in some of these Middle Eastern countries if you're gay. They're all advertising and spending billions of dollars on the World Cup and not saying a word. And Apple won't advertise on Twitter because they're unhappy with what some people might say there. I just want you to think about what a mirage, what a BS artifice we have created from these woke corporations. They are super woke in the United States, where they've calculated they gain politically, although we should discuss this in greater detail. But they don't say a word about all of the depredations that are going on in the Middle East, and they're fine spending billions of dollars to advertise at the World Cup. Really kind of fascinating. They won't even let you wear, Buck, a rainbow armband in Qatar. And yet all these companies that are constantly wagging their finger and lecturing us in the United States, I mean, Apple, for God's sakes, they support Chinese human rights violations to the nth degree, and they won't spend money on Twitter?
Tim Cook is fine with using hordes of slave labor in China to build his iPhones for maximum profit, but any American who goes online to say that only women can get pregnant, that's too far for Tim Cook. That's unacceptable. And by the way, on Ahmadinejad, I was going through the memory banks here. I did nail this one on the fly. 2009, so about a decade ago, and this was ABC News reporting. This is the president of Iran. There are no gays in Iran, and there's no oppression of women in Iran. So, I mean, look, I understand there's people are saying, well, Buck, of course, we all know this, but no, we can't allow this stuff to go without response. And they say, oh, but America's so racist. Okay. Which country do people actually want to live in? There's a reason for that.
Not a lot of people fleeing to Iran. Just point that out.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope the men's team, honestly, I hope they just kick their asses tomorrow. And I don't get fired up about sports really very much, but this I will get fired up about.